Does Zoom make you stupid? And will Costa Rica become the next remote work hub? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first episode of Virtual Coffee Chat with Louis for Think Remote. Today is the 29th of March, 2021, and this is the program where I, Louis, discuss the latest remote work news while sipping coffee. So the point is that for a short period of time, as long as my mug lasts, you will get the latest in remote work news and my commentary on it. So let's begin with Costa Rica. So it's Bali that has the reputation of being the haven for digital nomads, but Costa Rica is making a bid for it. Let's talk about it in a second after a sip of coffee. So there's already a chain of hotels in Costa Rica that bets on digital nomads with co-working and shared spaces, right? But the country itself is looking to improve its infrastructure to attract more digital nomads. In fact, last week, I believe Friday, the tourism minister, Gustavo Segura, says that he sees the boom in remote work as a way to make up for the reduced tourism due to the current global pandemic. And according to the Costa Rican Tourism Institute, a bill is underway to allow digital nomads to obtain several benefits, including extendable residence permits to up to a year, the possibility of opening bank accounts there, and using the driver's license from their home country. Now, obviously, this is very welcome because especially for the digital nomads that start their trip from the United States, because it's much easier to get to Costa Rica than to Bali. But for everyone else around the world, it's always nice to have options. And Costa Rica is, by all accounts, I've never been there, a beautiful, beautiful, relaxing country with plenty of nature, surfing, parks, etc. So sounds cool. Let's look into it as it develops further its infrastructures and the rights that allow people to live and work from there. Now, let's talk about Zoom. It turns out that Zoom might be making you and your team more stupid, right? This research comes from the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University. It's based around the fact that synchronicity seems to get worse when a call is in video. Let's talk a bit about synchronicity or synchrony, right? That's the alignment of nonverbal behaviors that promotes collective intelligence. And you think that, right, that would be better, not worse, with video, because plenty of nonverbal behaviors are physical, right? But it turns out that visual cues, such as me picking my cup of coffee and drinking a sip, taking a sip, visual cues act as distractions. You were distracted right now, right? Looking at my mug. So, my coffee mug, not my actual mug. So anyway, let's talk about the fact that the study findings that groups that communicating using voice only paid closer attention to auditory cues and so achieved higher levels of synchrony. Now, they were also more equal in turn taking. That's another factor that promotes collective intelligence. In video, some people use visual signs to grab a larger share of airtime. So that means that they were also better at solving problems together. Here's my takes on this. Now, first, it's important to understand, because the media gets this wrong very often, that science is not a wisdom dispensing machine, right? And scientific studies are not like little pellets of wisdom that can automatically make your work better if you act on it. As someone who in a former life was a doctor and looked at my share of studies and even collaborated and reviewed some, I can tell you that studies usually are at its best when they lead us to more questions and hopefully better questions, and not necessarily to enact policy. Because they tend to be very one-dimensional, right? They focus on one metric, on one hypothesis that might not necessarily fit everyone's reality, right? For example, I'd like the people who made this study to expand their thesis of the groups. The study classifies pairs as their group unit, yet I challenge anyone who worked as a team of 2 and a team of 7 to tell me that the dynamics are compatible. They are not. Right? it's also worth pointing out that CI, collective intelligence, is just one metric. So what about leadership, inspiration, trust, etc.? There are many factors that go into making a team work, and for different kinds of work, right? Some work might be more grinding, might demand more stamina. Some work might demand more creativity, right? Some work may benefit from having the team, huddle around a clear leader that takes most of the initiative. Other kinds of work might very well benefit from having several people, each with their own initiatives, etc. There are many different works out there, many profiles of teams. So I would caution anyone to grab this and to grab these conclusions and think they are one size fits all. They most certainly are not. I mean, it might even be very well that the team that is more visually connected develops more empathy and so performs better at some tasks despite having a lower value of collective intelligence. This is just one metric. And that's not even to talk about trust building. I mean, the other day I was grabbing some pastries to go with my coffee. And let me tell you a story of what happened. So what happened was that I was at the pastry shop and, of course, with a mask on and staying at the proper distance and etc. But there was a person in front of me and I found it odd that she was listening to something on her phone on speaker, right? While she was shopping for pastries. Obviously, I assume she was mute because she was also talking to the attendant at the same time. And then I figured out that she was in actually a conference call and she kept on that conference call on speaker all the way to grabbing the pastries, to getting on the car, to unparking the car and moving away. I know that she was because she had the window open. And I mean, that's shocking to me. And I think that if you're a new person on a team, right, you need to develop trust with the team and the team needs to develop trust with you. And that is actually much easier if everyone knows that everyone else is paying attention, if they have actual proof of that, which is visual, right? Not to say that teams that already have a good bond of trust need this. Sure, if I'm working with someone that I've worked with for several years, I know them, I know what they do, I know their work, etc. I mean, I don't even need a call. I can just work by chat. But the reality is that if you're getting someone new, someone less experienced on your team, you need to create those bonds of trust. And that's a question, right? I'm not sure if there's literature on that, but it's definitely a question worth posing. So anyway, this is not to say that I'm down on the study. Again, it's a data point. It's a data point that's worth considering when defining your policy, right? For example, in an interview that's up on the Think Remote website, my interview with Judy Rees, we concluded that it's important for people to have their mics on even if they're not speaking. A lot of teamwork cultures say that it's only respectful to mute yourself when another person is speaking. But what Judy found out is that actually those very important nonverbal cues can happen at any moment. And keeping your mic open, of course, if you don't have any annoying background noise, right, that will disturb the team. But keeping your mics open allows people to get those cues and then increase synchronicity, right? So another thing that I personally like to do and I found works very well for me in managing my own energy and my level of attention, but again, might not work for all. I know some people that doesn't work at all, is to just, instead of having everyone on the screen, just keep the active speaker, right? That will enable you to build empathy and trust with that person while still having the audio cues from the rest of the assembly, right? Again, this is not studied. Scientific studies would need to have been made contemplating this. And yeah, right. The question is not, my idea here, what I want to transmit here is just because something has scientific study tagged onto it, don't treat it as gospel, right? Use it to think, use it as a starting point to think better about the options that you take, to think better about your policies and how it fits. And also, read closely the study, figure out what was the situation that they made the study in. The study is freely available. You can just Google for speaking out of turn, how video conferencing reduces vocal synchrony and collective intelligence. I'll also try to add a link in the show notes and you can figure it out. It's openly available to all, which is very good. So without further ado, I will take the last sip of coffee and bid you adieu. This was Virtual Coffee Chat with Louis for Think Remote on the 29th of March, 2021. See you.